Well, I am an alumni of LeMoyne, class of 2001. I was a business major. Yeah, I'm a former Miss LeMoyne, Miss LeMoyne 2000. I look like one. What they look like? Me? She said I look like one. Yes, I have my own podcast. It's called Verbally Effective. Verbally Effective. What's your podcast? Oh, you already got one. Yay! Okay, it gets the students to come. So what's the name of your podcast? Okay. So how many episodes did you have in that first season? That's a good amount. Where did you record? Where did you? That's not everybody doing it. You know, mostly. Oh, I know. I know. Look, I know him, honey. So if they scan it, what is it going to? Some digital? Could I get a printout of that? Yeah. That's what I want to. Yeah. So I can somebody got a question, I can follow them. Hopefully they'll follow me back. If they got any questions. Yeah, it's 12:31 home. I guess we can keep the mics down there. I really want y'all to come up here with the mic. Yes. Should I wait for more people or what? We're streaming now. Wow. Verbally effective. it, I know I'm on everybody's time today. Welcome to the masterclass for multimedia. This is going to be the first of many, hopefully. I am your presenter, Ena Esco. Welcome, welcome. I am an alumni of LeMoyne-Owen College, class of 2001. So that's been some time, right? When I attended LeMoyne-Owen College, I was a business major. However, I did want to get into broadcasting. I was here originally my freshman year on an athletic / academic scholarship. I played volleyball. And I always wanted to be either a news reporter on the radio, something with media, right? So first year, played volleyball, kept my grades up. Second year, I became a Du Bois Scholar, so full academic. I still played volleyball that second year, but I stopped. I pledged, AKA, I was busy all of a sudden. But I still wanted to do this media thing. So not sure if you guys are familiar with a DJ by the name of Devin Steele from Memphis. But he used to DJ our parties, our AKA parties. And I went up to him one day. I said, hey, Devin, I'm interested in doing radio. What do I need to do? And he looked at me. He was like, well, if you're really interested, I want you to come to the radio station on Monday morning and talk to the program director. I said, cool. So went up there, talked to him. I thought I was immediately about to jump on the radio. It didn't work like that. I started off as a research coordinator. So what that entailed was back then, this is a long time ago, right? Like 20 years ago, we used to have record stores where people actually bought music. So that was around the time records, CDs were still in rotation. So people would buy the music. I would ask them after they purchased the music, why did you purchase that? What is it about the artist? Blase, blase. They did that for maybe 3 months. Then they gave me an opportunity to be on the air. So that was at Hot 107.1. Probably stayed there a year and a half, then moved to Clear Channel, which is now iHeartRadio. Spent the majority of my time on radio with Clear Channel, probably over 20 years. Within that time frame, I did go to a couple of different radio stations with Cumulus and Citadel Broadcasting, but the majority of my background is radio. Back then at LeMoyne, they did not have a broadcast program. I believe they had a dual program with Russ College. But because of my Du Bois Scholarship and my requirements, commitments, I could not do that. So that radio, entry was my way into the media. So still in radio right now. I'm with WYXR. That's the new radio station at Crosstown Concourse. Have you guys been to Crosstown? Have you seen WYXR there? So it's kind of like open. You see the booth. You see the DJs in there live. In 2018, started a podcast, Verbally Effective with Ena Esco. The reason I started the podcast, because I would ask my program directors, hey, I want to interview so-and-so, on the show. They're doing great things in the community. I would always get a no. I'm like, why not? Like, they're so awesome. Let's uplift the community, blase, blase. Always would get a no. So I had heard about podcasting. I said, you know what? I'm going to start a podcast. And then I can talk to who I want to talk to about what I want to talk about. But when I started the podcast, I definitely needed more structure. When I started it, it was pretty much the radio thing, radio interview. But after researching, I figured out it was way more to podcasting than what I initially started doing. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about podcasting. So let me pull up the slides. Boom. All right. I'm just waiting for the click. What am I doing wrong, Gavin? Sorry. I apologize. We did go over this, though. It doesn't. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Come on, fine. Apologies. Technical difficulties. It's okay. It's okay. We can improvise for a sec. Um, okay. Okay. So I'll just go thumbs up when I want to go to the next one. Do I have people in the building that listen to podcasts right now? Yes. So everyone's familiar. So what podcast do you all listen to right now? So you like a lot of pods.
I have a collection of them, and I love podcasts because I sit and listen all day.
Okay.
So, um, some one is called S Town. I don't know if you heard of S Town, and then of course my own podcast. Well, I don't listen to my own podcast.
Tell us the name of your podcast.
Pink Too True in the Culture.
Okay.
So it's pretty much like what you was kind of trying to the mission you was trying to reach out to the community. Except mine was like I had a lot of friends that was non-black, and so they were always interested. They were interested in, oh, black people do this. Why? You know the black culture. So non-black people like, why can't we touch your hair, or why can't we do this? And so I was like, okay, so that's what I mainly the do's and don'ts in the black community. Okay. And I listened to the Spectacular Experience by Spectacular, and Jill Scott. She have a podcast.
Yeah, she has a good one.
So I have a whole list, but I'm gonna pass the mic on.
Okay. Hello.
Okay. I listen to the Jill Scott podcast too. That's my girl. Okay. I also listen to the Breakfast Club. I love the Breakfast Club just because of the drama.
You gotta get your tea.
Gotta get the tea. And I'm also launching my own podcast coming next month. It's called Pretty Girl Podcast. Okay. And I'm going to be talking about just anything. Like that's my little motto, like child, anything. We talking about anything. So fashion, politics, just everything. So
okay. Is it gonna be just you?
Yes, it's gonna be just me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Come on,
no, come on.
Okay, so I'm actually new to the podcasting world.
Okay.
I've tried to listen to this thing called The View because they do podcasts. So they have things on Mondays, and if you don't catch it on Mondays, they got it for the whole week. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to get into podcasting.
Yes, because you're starting one.
I know. Oh, y'all, I'm starting a podcast. Like I told you I told you already yesterday. So,
okay.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you too, Kayla. Tell us about the podcast you listen to after she goes.
The podcast I listen to is like Steve Harvey Morning Show because I'm a big fan of him. I don't know if that's considered a podcast. I like Uncle Steve.
Well, if he puts it out there on the podcast platform, yes.
Yeah, it's
because a lot of people just convert radio to podcast.
And I also like YouTube and podcasts. How that's something I wanted to get into, like how they set their platform up and talk about certain things. Like Michaela said, I love tea. So
yeah, okay, I do too. Yes,
I haven't listened to that. Is it does it help?
It does.
So as you can see, there are millions of podcasts out there. But the thing about it is, how does your podcast stand out? It takes a lot of consistency to stand out because it's a very saturated space. So what is different about your podcast that people will be tuning into? So that's what we're going to talk about today, the different formats of podcasting. Okay, let's go to the next slide. What you say, child? It's not going. Okay, there we go. Okay, but first let's start about multimedia. So multimedia is a system of relaying information and entertainment that includes many different forms of communication. So we got text, image, audio, video, animation. My expertise is the audio piece. Next slide. Okay, podcasting, the practice of using the internet to make digital recordings of broadcasts available for downloading to a computer or mobile device. So that's going to be our first focus today with this Multimedia Masterclass. Next slide. Okay, let's talk about some of the major players in the market right now. Of course, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple, iHeart. If your podcast isn't on one of these platforms, you're missing out. There are many other platforms as well, but whatever hosting site that you go through should be feeding to some of these major platforms if you're on a podcast. So these are the major players. Next slide. Okay, so let's kind of break it down. What are the top podcasts right now? Let's just say if you Google Spotify top podcasts, and you'll see the same podcast in each different broadcasting site. So Joe Rogan is leading the pack. Not sure if you guys are a fan of Joe Rogan. I'm not, because he kind of talks sideways a lot. But I am a fan of The Daily, Crime Junkie. If you're familiar with, some of these series podcasts, they're very interesting. They'll keep you tuned in if you're on a long drive, if you're working out. My Favorite Murder. See, what you probably don't see on some of the top podcasts are people that look like us, right? So that's what I would love to do, is change this narrative. Next slide. Now, these are some of the podcasts that I like. You told me the ones that you like. These are some of the ones that I like. Of course, I got to get my tea with Joe Budden. He talks a lot of cash money. I like Wall Street Journal's Secrets of Wealthy Women. Earn Your Leisure podcast. These two brothers have built an empire, ladies and gentlemen. They really want to tap into the finance literacy side of things for the Black community. They've grown tremendously. They've partnered with major corporations at this point. These guys have really broken the mold in the podcast space. Women Evolve, my girl Sarah Jakes. Jay Shetty, this is a new one that I've started listening to on purpose, and I actually heard him on The Breakfast Club. This guy is like a monk, and he breaks concepts down very simple, very inspirational. Social media marketing with Michael Stelzner. I like to listen to this because I like to stay up to date with social media and how I can improve the way that I market my business on social media. So that's a good one for that. Of course, The Daily is good for news. Power Podcast with Brandy L. Bates. I love this woman. She's more so of like a motivational speaker. Jamel Hill, Unbothered. You've probably known about Jamel Hill. I do love Jason Lee. Hollywood Unlocked. He's changed his team since that original logo right there. But Jason is messy, and I like to go to messy because I don't do messy, but I like to hear messy sometimes, right? Next slide. Okay, so this is what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about defining your podcast. I know some of you already have an idea for it, but we're going to try to kind of break it down to how we can format it, right? So what I want to know, I want you guys to tell me your big idea, which a lot of you have already talked about. But we want to break it down as simple as describing your podcast in 1 to 2 sentences. So let me give you an example of that. So I told you guys I host a Verbally Effective podcast. If anyone asks me about my podcast, hey, Ena, what's the name of your podcast? Tell me about it. I already know what I'm going to say. I'm going to say, hey, the Verbally Effective podcast is an interview style podcast that intersects art, culture, politics, entertainment with a Memphis focus. I already broke down my podcast in those few words. And that's what I want you guys to do, because you're going to get that question all the time. If you throw out there you have a podcast, I need you guys to sell it real quick and kind of summarize it up. So that I'm going to show you how we're going to do that today. Think of some of the podcasts that reflect your same vision. What's the theme? What's the genre of your podcast? Do you want to include certain segments on your show? If so, what kind? Do you prefer to improvise? Do you want to talk with guests? Do you want to read from a script? A lot of you may have to start off with a script. I mean, I did it. Like, you know, if you're videoing your podcast, a lot of them are just audio, no video, unless you want to get on a YouTube platform. I'm at YouTube level now, right? But I didn't always start off like that. I was full audio in the beginning, but it's okay. It's okay. How often will you release your episodes, and how long do you want them to be? And the thing about the frequency is important because people have short attention spans these days, right? So you may have your favorite podcast. You might can listen, you know, from beginning to end, but Joe Budden will go 2 hours or more. I will tune him out at some point, right? But it's safe to say that 20 minutes is a good time space, right? People can pretty much get, like, you can go anywhere in Memphis, right, in 20 minutes. I can listen to a full podcast in 20 minutes while I'm riding in Memphis. Next slide. So let's talk about the format. So these are your major format styles. Number one, interview style. I told you guys Verbally Effective is an interview style podcast. And I prepare for my guests by initially making contact, booking their date, but also letting them know, hey, I'm going to need a headshot to promote your podcast. I'm also going to need your bio because I want to dig into what they're promoting already, right, in their bio. But I really don't want to have a full-blown conversation with them until I see them because I've learned my lesson the hard way. You'll have those conversations and then you won't get that same initial energy when you guys meet in person because I actually record in a studio face-to-face with them. Okay, we got solo podcasts. That's just you and the microphone. So I know my girl right here has a solo, right? So those are for my big talkers. A lot of people have to plan those out really well. 3 round table. So that could be more than 2 people on the pod. And those are usually longer podcasts because you're probably, you know, sitting with a few people. You're probably connecting on Zoom with a few people, but those are going to be some of your longer podcasts. 4, multiple co-hosts. I know Miss Tyranny, she has a podcast that she's planning with a co-host, Mr. Bishop, right? I can't wait. Next slide. Okay, so let's start with the interview style podcast. Now, like I said, this is the one that I do. Interview shows, they give you an endless source of content and make each episode unique. You can interview guests in person. You can record them over the phone, via Zoom. I've done it all. When COVID hit, I did not stop recording. And I have a weekly podcast. And that's the thing about it. Consistency is key. If you are not going to post when you say you're going to post, you will lose an audience. You will lose listeners. This format works for just about any kind of nonfiction podcast. So what I've done is come up with a basic template, right? So if you're interested in doing an interview style podcast, you're going to have an intro. So I told you guys, Verbally Effective is an interview style podcast that intersects art, culture, politics, entertainment with a Memphis focus. I talked to some of the movers and the shakers in Memphis that are elevating the city. So that's how my intro sounds if you've ever listened to Verbally Effective. So I'll introduce my guests. If I have any sponsors, I'll shout them out before that, introduce the guests, do the interview, bring it to a close with the summary, and then tell my goodbyes and have a call to action. I always have a call to action. Do you guys know what a call to action is? Yes. I always have a call to action. Tell your listeners to do something. And mainly it's to follow you, to subscribe. They may be listening, but they may not be subscribed. But always have a call to action. Next slide. Solo podcast. Okay, recording a podcast by yourself, it has a lot of pros and cons, but it's a pretty good option if you don't want to worry about booking guests. You can tell your thoughts directly to your listeners. Solo shows are easy to edit and it takes less time to produce. The hard part is having enough to say without bouncing off of a guest or co-host. And I will tell you guys, I dread doing a solo podcast. Although I'm a talker, I know that is a lot of planning. That is a lot of content. You will really have to plan out your shows. You don't want, just a lot of dead air or anything like that. But then, that's why they have editing as well. But, for you big talkers, hurrah to you. I will pump you up. I will listen to them because I listen to a lot of solo podcasts. But you know how they say, like, the thing that you're scared of, that's the thing you need to do. I may need to try to do one. Okay, so a lot of the solo podcasts are the self-help, spiritual, comedy, music, art, etc. Whatever you're into, fashion, whatever you're into. So here's a script template for a solo podcast. Of course, your intro. Topic number 1. You're going to segue into topic number 2. You're going to segue into any emails you may have collected, any social media commentary. You're going to interact. You're definitely going to use your social media for your audience as well. And of course, summary and outro. Next slide. The roundtable format. So this is usually 2 or 3 times as long as a typical podcast. We talked about that. Features anywhere from 3 to 10 guests. That's a lot going on a podcast, but believe me, I've listened to some. The number of guests might change each episode based on who's an expert on that particular topic. Genres include gaming, technology, and long-form podcasts. So a basic template would look like podcast intro, introduce each guest, discussion, audience Q&A, summary, and outro. But believe me, this podcast is probably going to last an hour and a half or longer based on the content, based on that many people there, because everyone is wanting to say something and get their point across. Next slide. Okay, multiple co-hosts. So this is more so for Tyranny and Bishop. So co-hosting with multiple people can be a very fun, dynamic podcast. The challenge with this format is getting everyone together in one place. Genres include comedy podcasts, beginner podcasters, any show where you want lots of opinions and commentary. A lot of people start off with the co-host because like we mentioned earlier, you can bounce off another person in conversation. It's not all up to one person saying everything. A script template for that would look like the intro, introducing your guest, topic 1, segueing into topic 2, summary, and outro. Next slide. Okay, let's talk about frequency. How often do you want to post your podcast? Do you want to do it daily? Probably not. Probably not. Do you want to do it weekly? Maybe. I post Verbally Effective every Monday. Monthly. Or you may want to do something else. You may want to do bi-monthly. You may want to do quarterly. But whatever you do, whenever you first tell your audience about your podcast, you definitely want to set that appointment time because that's when they are going to be tuning in every week because they're waiting on me every Monday. Next slide. Okay, let's talk about length. A good thing to remember is 20 minutes. 20 minutes is key. Someone can listen to a podcast for 20 minutes straight through. Like I mentioned, you can go anywhere in this in about 20 minutes and have that podcast listen from beginning to end. And you definitely want people listening to it and tapping into it. Now, once you get over that 20-minute threshold, it gets a little funny because there's been studies done with time spent listening, and people kind of tune out after that 20-minute marker. Unless your content is just that great, that good, everybody knows who you are, or they're interested in who you're interviewing or what you're talking about. More than 40 minutes is quite a bit, unless you're going to do the long-form podcast with a round table and you have multiple guests. Or once again, unless your content is that good and somebody's going to listen straight through. Next slide. Okay, So let's think ahead. Now you guys have the template in front of you. Okay, Gavin, you can switch off of the presentation. Now, let's talk about some of the existing podcasts. We've already talked about this already. Podcast name, topic, format, length, and frequency. Your podcast, is everybody already set on the style? We went through each style. Is it going to be interview? Is it going to be solo, panel, narrative storytelling, a combination of sorts? Frequency, are you doing daily, weekly, monthly, something different? We talked about episode length. Now, something to think about. What makes your podcast different from everybody else? Like, why do I want to tune into your podcast? Why are you different from the Breakfast Club? Why are you different from any other Memphis podcast? The opportunity that I saw with Verbally Effective is I didn't know of a podcast that talked to the movers and shakers in Memphis and put them on a platform. I never heard of one. Like, other than radio, podcast, no. So I saw that gap and I fulfilled it. So you kind of, if you're thinking about doing a podcast, you have to think, is there a need for it? What value or perspective can you add? You know, what is your personality? It needs to come out on the podcast. You see, I'm looking messing with Tyranny. Hello. Will listeners be empowered? Are you giving them information? Why are you doing this podcast? What is the point of it? Are you trying to just entertain people? Are you inspiring them to take an action? You know, what kind of experience do you want your listeners to have? What kind of experience do you want them to have? Why are you the right person to make this podcast? So what I want you guys to do is jot down the format that you're thinking about doing or already doing. You need a pen? Yeah, that's the second page. Look, I want to get you home. What's up, lady?
I'm over here.
Good to see you. I'm going to see you after this. Okay. And the reason why we're writing these things down is because I would love for maybe you all could come up here and give me a little dose of your podcast, just at a very high level. It's cool. It's cool. I'm not saying give me 20 minutes. Give me a good three. So this is really you creating a blueprint to talk through that up here. You know, what need or gap are you feeling? How does your podcast address your audience? Who is your audience? Who are you talking to? You definitely have to understand your audience. Who are you talking to? So you mentioned fashion. You're talking to the fashionistas out here, right? You're talking to the girls out here. So that's what you talk about, what they're interested in. And don't try to talk to everybody because you can't, you know. Everybody's not going to tune in. So if your thing is fashion, stick to fashion. But I think you said you're going to talk about more than fashion. You might want to narrow it down. Because if you're all over the place, it's really like, who is your audience? So for me, for example, I know that my audience, and I look at analytics all the time because I need to understand where am I going with this. My audience is mainly people that live in Memphis that are business owners between 25 and 50 plus that I mentioned business owners, right? I had this broken down in paperwork, but basically business owners, you know, because people promote their businesses on my podcast. You may get to the point where, let's just stick with fashion. Someone that has a boutique, they want to, do business with you and promote their line on your podcast. They may want to partner with you to do an on-location event. It can get to that. So you can take it a lot of different directions. I've had on-location podcasts. I try to do something every year here at LeMoyne for homecoming. Other than homecoming, I've had live shows at the Hattaloo Theater. It just keeps growing and growing. But then when COVID hit, of course, we had to switch to the Zoom platform. But since then, Verbally Effective was invited to South by Southwest in 2020, but COVID knocked that out. Verbally Effective was voted the best podcast. I came in third place. But, enough people, are listening and they voted. Y'all don't want to know who was number one, number two, because they don't look like me. But that's what's going on in Memphis. But I was honored, right? But you may get speaking engagements, whoever your audience is. People are out here doing events. They're engaged in the community on whatever topic you're doing. There's a lot of opportunity that comes out of these podcasts. Okay. So let's go to the third page. Does everyone have a name for their podcast? Verbally Effective is an interview-style podcast that intersects art, culture, politics, and entertainment with a Memphis focus. So pretty much the same thing that I've been telling you fits on this page 3. Okay, let's go to the next page, the episode template page. Okay, the intro. Of course, you need to introduce yourself, the name of your podcast, a brief overview of the episode. What topic are you doing that particular day, or who are you interviewing, right? Your content, 1 to 3 key points with examples, with evidence of whatever there is that you want to discuss. Are you the expert? Is the guest the expert in whatever topic that may be? Your outro, of course, always thank your listeners. Let them know where to find your podcast. It may be on Apple, Spotify. A lot of people just say streaming on all platforms. And if you say that, please be streaming on all platforms, because people may not be on the Apple. They may not be on Amazon. They may be just on Anchor. You never know. Also, if you can, tease for the next episode. If you already have your episodes planned out, give them something to be thirsty for the next week. And of course, a call to action. Hey, subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube. You may have a newsletter. I have a newsletter with the podcast where I engage all of my former guests to do op-eds on things that are happening in the Memphis community, keeping them updated on the people that I've interviewed and people that are coming up who are verbally effective. Do I have anyone that would like to come up and talk about their podcast? Come on. We're going to start with you, sweetheart. Oh, you're not going to be the only one. Have a seat. You are already hot.
Okay, so you want me to start from the page or from the, okay. Mm-hmm. So for my format, I put slow. I want to do a solo that will slowly transition into an interview format. This podcast will last between 20 to 30 minutes in length. And the reason why I chose that length is because I did research on how during the time frame of keeping people attention. People will only listen to you with between 20 to 30 minutes. I don't want to go over, because then you lose them. So I don't want to lose them. I want to keep them so they can keep coming back. And then number 2, I put it said the need or opportunity. What need or gap are you feeling? So my podcast started because I had a lot of friends that didn't understand the African American cultural. So it's for the need for the advancement in the Black community. I want I have a shirt that I made. It says "Rebuild Black Wall Street." Black capitalism is very well. It really doesn't exist. Well, it exists, but it's not exposed enough. So you always see people shopping at Target or non-black big marketing places, and I always like to go on there and I like to promote places like Evelyn and Olive, the restaurant down on Madison. It's a Jamaican style restaurant, or the African place on North Third where they sell a lot of African exported items. So I'm all about Black Wall Street and just bring it back. And so the benefit of my podcast. A lot of people that are not aware of what's going on. I said that already. So the alternative, competing or complementing podcasts or other sources. Well, I don't know. I don't think I have any competing podcasts because mine's pretty unique. I haven't seen anybody talk about it.
So who is your audience?
So the audience would be like people who are pro black, or what I'm saying, like they into it. People within the ages of 18 to probably 50 or maybe above. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But when I check my back office, I have people from all different backgrounds listen to it. They tell you the age. They give you the statistics of who's listening, where they're listening. I had somebody listen to my podcast, and they was in a part of the world called Oshina.
See how
I was like,
people everywhere can hear what you've created. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it was amazing because I never heard of Oshina. I'm just being honest. So I was like, what part of the world is Oshina? So you have people in Africa that will listen. You have people in China, and they'll tell you and even in the U.S. And surprisingly, in the U.S., Memphis was not the biggest, surprisingly, it was California. Yeah. And so I was like, why California? So one guy told me it may be the way you talk. Maybe they like the way you talk. And so I was like, oh, okay. So the advantages is, how is your podcast distinct and it best suited to be listeners. So people need to know what's going on. A lot of stuff is hidden. So I feel like people need to know. And it's interesting for me when somebody tell me something new, and I'm like, oh, for real? Like, I didn't know that. So it piques my attention. So I felt like that would be the advantage of allowing others to know. Instead of, in America, I feel like it's common to hide things and cover things up. Well, I'm like the person that's like, no, I'm unveiling everything. So
unveil it all.
Yeah. So that's my whole thing.
Okay. So your audience isn't necessarily Black people, but the content is about
Black. Yeah.
Black.
Correct.
There are a lot of people that are interested in Black people other than Black people.
Yep.
So maybe there's just a bigger market for that as well in California, and maybe it's not Memphis your biggest chunk because you're not catering to Memphis. You're not mentioning Memphis all the time. It's probably not picking up on some of those key words.
Okay, I never thought of that like that. But that's pretty much it.
I love it. I'll be tuning in. So when is the next one? How often do you post?
Okay, so my first season I ended it with 8 episodes. So I did it every Tuesday. So every Tuesday I would post. And I did have the stuff that you put, I did. The only thing that I did not do, which I learned from you, and I'm going to keep note of it, I didn't do teasers. I need to do teasers.
Yes, definitely.
So I didn't do teasers. I just told them to tune in next week, but I didn't tell them what they were going to hear. So I did it Tuesdays. Every Tuesdays, I have it uploaded by 1 p.m. That's what I said it is. And sometimes I would do like those bonus episodes, and those bonus episodes would be like more insight of what's going on within my life. So that also kept people tuning in because, people want to know what's going on with you. So I would give them like tidbits of what's going on. Like, you guys, guess what? I'm enrolled back into HBCU LeMoyne. So I talk about LeMoyne, or I talk about, little things like I'm going through adoption process to, adopt a little boy. Okay. And so But they would, in order for them to get access to that, they would have to become, and this is something that you could probably do, Michaela, they would have to become like Patreons. And so if you want to get that extra of me, then you have to pay me, And so, and I'm not trying to be funny, but most people, if they love you, they'll be supportive. And Patreon is a good platform.
So how's your experience on Patreon?
It's good. It's not a lot of, it's more white people that's supportive than black people. And I'm not trying to be funny, but it is. So it's more non-black background, but that's what my podcast is mainly targeting. So they want to hear about it. They want to support it. So black people, we already know, but we do have black people that listen, but not a lot. So,
and that's okay. Now, if you want to get more black listeners, what are you going to do different though?
That's what I need help on. Maybe you can help me with that.
Yes. Have you ever tried to target sponsorships?
Yes, I did. There's actually a website. It's they do like ads and stuff, so they would do that. And I forget the name of this website, but you can go there and they'll pay you a certain amount of money to advertise in a product. But it's called what is it called? When I find it, I'll tell you.
It's a lot of ad agencies that do that with podcasters. I don't like to go that route. I go and sell myself.
So how do you? So and that's another thing. Like the sponsorship thing, I never got deep into it, but I heard that you can get sponsors. There are also big agencies that pays, but I want mine to be more organic.
Exactly.
This guy reached out to me and he wanted me to sign a contract, and he was gonna pay a lot. He was gonna pay me a lot of some money because he was like, "Oh, I like your podcast, and would you like to make 70,000?" He was talking about a month, and I was like,
"But would you still own your podcast?"
No, that's the thing. I didn't. That's the thing. So it wasn't organic because they would tell me. They would have to tell me what to talk about. It was kind of like they would have to direct me. And some people were like, "You crazy? You should have took that offer." And I didn't want to do it that way. I wanted to grow it organically. Like even though, like if I would have signed a contract, I probably would have had more listeners, more followers. I probably would have had like a big old space studio, like all that stuff. But it wouldn't be completely mine. It would be the recording. That it'll be theirs. Like I probably have like 70% or maybe less than that, and they'll have they'll have 7% and I have the rest.
And see, that's the thing about it. If they're offering you $70,000, you can already imagine how much you're really worth. If they offering you 70, baby, you can write your own check today.
Yeah, people thought I was crazy because they was like, "You should have took that offer." But I would have to risk selling my name, selling my creation.
Don't do it.
So
don't do it.
And somebody told me the same thing you said. They said if they willing to give you $70,000, just imagine how much your thing would be worth if you just stick to it. And I was like, I never thought of it.
You know what? We'll talk more, but I think that if that happened. All of that happened, they approach you with that, you can sell yourself and cut out all the middlemen. Yeah. And the money is out there. The partnerships are out there.
I need to find it. And that's the thing, they don't train, they won't tell you. Like they won't
I'll help you.
Okay. So because I asked them, I said, what if I just want to do it myself? And like they had resources and people, but they said you can't have access unless you're contracted with us.
Yeah. Because they want to make their money.
Yeah.
Let me tell y'all something. I've had meetings with about 2 agencies in Memphis. First of all, when I started Verbally Effective, I was working at iHeartRadio. And I was the only one doing a podcast in that building. They had all these studios in there. And the DJs, they just go there, do their shift, they out. And a lot of pre-recording was going on, things of that nature. And so when I started my podcast, so some of the DJs are seeing some of their friends come in. They're like, "Oh, you interviewing so-and-so today?" I'm like, "Yeah." And so then it eventually became, "Well, when am I going to be interviewed? Why haven't you asked me to be a guest?" I said, "Oh, you're interested now in the vision that I have, right?" Then it became talks about, "Hey, Ena, we want to talk to you about your podcast." I said, "Okay." I would go into a meeting. They would say, "Why don't you put your podcast on the iHeart platform?" And I said, "So what does that entail?" "Well, you just log into this Spreaker account, put your information in there." I'm like, "I already have a Spreaker account. Like, I'm already on iHeart. I work for iHeart. I'm already on iHeart, but I didn't have to go into your account." So what they were doing, they were trying to put me up under the station's account, under their umbrella already, slick without my permission, but with my permission. And I said, no. Because at this point, I feel that I've built an archive. I have over 210 episodes of Memphian content. You're going to have to pay for that. Like, no, you're going to have to pay for it. And right now, I can sell it to any programmer. So that's what you're building. If you stay consistent, content is king right now. Everybody is on their phone. Everything is digital. People are interested. What part of the world did you say? Oceania. That's what I'm saying.
You wonder how you hear it. It's social media.
Yes.
You post it. And Linktree is a good thing too.
Yes. I'm on Linktree. Yes. So there are people with different podcast agencies in Memphis right now, and they're always male dominated. So I've held meetings with these gentlemen, and they're like, okay, Ena, so this is what we're offering, similar to what you're doing. Hey, we'll pay you this, but hey, we'll promote your stuff. You don't promote it anymore. We'll take care of all of that. We'll pay you this amount. And I'm looking at their YouTube numbers. I'm not seeing hardly no nothing, no engagement, no nothing. I said, everything that you're offering me, I'm already doing, but I got numbers. So what can you really do for me? So you have to really weigh out the pros and cons and be leery of these people approaching you. Because if they're approaching you, that means you really got something. You got something. Okay, I'm loving it. Y'all need to tune into her podcast. When you gonna post the next one?
Okay, so it's deactivated now.
Get on the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Why are we deactivated?
Because I'm going into season 2, and so I'm working on new material, like content right now. The content is not finished, so I'm gonna do I have to it's not. So the logo, I'm gonna update it or redesign it. It's gonna still be Pink Too True in the Culture. It's just gonna be a different artwork you're gonna see. Then I'm gonna change the theme music. And so yeah, it's just right now it's under construction for season 2.
Okay. Well, we'll be tuned in for season 2. Great job. Who's next? Give her a round of applause. Yes. So see, she already got her season 1 out the way. Come on, who next? You can come up here and talk about what you're trying to do at a very high level. And I know Tierney coming up after that. Yes. So, just kind of walk through, the format that you want. Why do you feel like there's a need for it? The benefits of it.
Okay. So mine is called Pretty Girl Podcast, like I said, but I really want to talk about things from a young Black girl's perspective, because I'm about to graduate, I'm about to go into the real world. So my biggest thing is just really getting, I don't know, I'm still developing it, so that I'm just brainstorming along the way, but really just getting stuff from a young Black girl's perspective. My audience is really about Black women, really 18 plus. That's really my target, to talk to Black girls, just about anything, because that's my motto. So that's why I say I could just talk about whatever, fashion, politics, education, whatever just comes to mind. So it's a solo podcast, so it's just gonna be me. And yeah, I don't really. Okay. I'm still developing it, so
I know you're still developing it, but make sure you remember, with the type of podcast you want, you're gonna have to plan this joker out. Yeah. Because if it's just gonna be you, let's just say you talking about politics. So it's a lot going on in politics right now. Are you gonna keep it Memphis based?
So I want to just keep it just Black based, anything Black. So Black politicians only, just Black fashion only, just still market just Black people. That's my main thing.
Okay. So the key is to plan all of them out. Yeah. And you may want to record, a whole season and just have all of those podcasts in the can so you can schedule them out. Right. So you'll be able to tease, because you'll already have all of that content, but they don't know that yet, right?
Right.
and you can edit, cut it up as you please. But let's just say you said fashion. I heard you say fashion. I heard you say politics, and I heard you say for Black people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're gonna have to narrow it down, though.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna like break it down in seasons. Like this season, we talk about like fashion, like what she wore to the Met Gala, or what you know, and just really break it down so it just won't be all over the place in one episode. Like, because I can't talk about fashion, politics all day in one. That's too much. So just kind of breaking it down. So I'm still working on it, but that's like my main thing.
Okay, and you said the name of it was gonna be what?
Pretty Girl Podcast.
Now, if you Google right now, Pretty Girl Podcast, it's probably gonna be quite a few people.
It was 2 other people who done it, but they never posted anything. So I'm gonna try to really bring it out there so they can be like, okay, yeah. And I'm gonna try to get it copyrighted too, because I don't think theirs is. So I'm gonna try to get it trademarked.
So you're working on the logo?
Yes, I got the logo. I got an Instagram page for it. So kind of getting it out on social media, and I announced it to my Facebook, kind of all my social media platforms. But I'm also do a YouTube channel as well, and actually live stream the podcast. And stuff, and put it on there.
Oh, girl, you ready for that live action?
I am, because I want to be a news anchor, so I got to get ready for that anyways. So being in front of the camera, but I'm still developing it, so it's in the works.
Sounds good. Now, today we're pretty much going over the format and style. Something that both ladies mentioned is social media. That's a whole nother masterclass, because it gets very detailed. It's strategy behind it, with, promoting your podcast, with even digging into the engagement on social media. People are living on their phones. Like I said, you can do geofencing right now and target everybody in this zip code, and they pick up their phone and they see your podcast logo. It gets that detailed. So, next time I meet with y'all, we'll probably do marketing, but great job. Great job. Let's give her a round of applause. You need any help, let me know. Okay, I know Tyranny ready. Come on with the school podcast. So we doing an LOC podcast. Come on, LOC. Come on, magician. Put some pep in that stuff. Woo-hoo! Well, let's be excited about it.
Okay, so I'm doing a multiple co-host podcast with those who Bishop. So I want it to be funny and not so serious all the time, and I wanted it to be a little flexible. I want the frequency to be weekly, more so like Tuesdays or probably Thursdays. I wanted it to be 25 minutes long. Don't want it to be too long, because we all got class and we all have short attention spans. So
what is the podcast about?
So since COVID happened, and so now since majority of everybody in Memphis and in Shelby County has gotten vaccinated, so now it's more about mitigation, and I wanted to incorporate more health talks. So that's what I wanted it to be, like more flexible health and things that people don't know, interviewing doctors, nurse practitioners, PAs, different doctors across the board. And I wanted it to be more student-based, and hopefully, if we do a good job, more community-based, so they can have something to listen to, something to bounce off of. I'm like, oh, I got this information from here, da-da-da-da-da, and I heard this doctor talk about this, blase, blase. You get it? Don't know if there are any other competing ones. There probably are. And
I can't think of any. I can't think of any.
I was trying to look some up.
But you need to do the research on that. But this is a LeMoyne-Owen podcast, correct? And it is to talk about the mitigation of COVID-19. Okay. And more health-related topics. But that's like a partnership galore with a lot of companies, I can see. Because who doesn't want to, inform the community about especially in a COVID environment that we're in right now.
And especially since us, I would say the younger not kids, we're grown adults. Us younger people, especially coming from like 18 and on up, to check for like different signs of everything and things that our parents probably don't even talk to us about. So
you and Bishop getting into the nitty gritty.
Well, more so like me. He just
Is Bishop a biology major too?
No.
Where is Bishop?
Bishop is at work. So
okay. Yeah. Okay. So when are we kicking it off? And what's the name of it?
See, I'm still trying to pick out a name. So I don't know if I want to do like Tuesday Talks, like name it Tuesday Talks, or I don't know yet. I'm still figuring out little stuff.
Is Bishop planning this with you?
Yes. I'm going to get with him on some stuff,
though. Okay. I think I'm going to help you guys too. I'll talk to Angela.
Please.
Come on, lady. Let's give Tierney a round of applause for the LOC podcast that is coming soon. We haven't figured out a name for it.
Not yet.
Here you go. Thank you. Okay, come through. You ready?
Nope, I'm not ready.
You're not ready.
I'm gonna need your help.
Okay.
So all is well. So,
okay.
So, excuse me. The name of my podcast, it would be based on around family connection. Oh, family connection. I had already started like a family reunion. I'm like CEO.
Okay.
Well, of my family, because I'm trying to pull us together. And that's the purpose of me moving to Memphis, is to find family.
Wow.
That's disconnected. Everybody going their own same different ways and raise their own families. So because the eldest has passed on, I'm in the genealogist part. So I decided to come to college. All right, late bloomer, but all is well.
All is well.
All is well. So I had already had a name because I was trying to create a name. So I think I'm going to basically stick on the name that I'm up under, and it's called Under the Umbrella.
Under the Umbrella. I like that.
Under the Umbrella. And so colorful, very colorful. I have a logo, but I think it needs tweaked. It needs to, have more like of our pop. But yeah, so a connection with family. My audience will be everybody. Everybody, family troubles, family values, family morals.
So this is about family dynamics.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, not just yours. Or are you going to talk about yours to pull out?
I'm just going to
get them to tune in.
All of like the young lady said, they're all adults, but I think, they're an adults, but they have issues. The adults have some. The youth, the young youth, the middle age. So everybody has some type of issue that they're dealing with.
Right.
And so I believe pulling it out, because we don't have nobody to talk to. When they're adolescents, there's get them some counseling. But even us, sometimes the college students, let me say that, or other adults in my middle age, we have a problem that we would like to talk to, and we don't have anybody to talk to vent. And so I think these things are addressed to say you're not alone, and that the resources, things that other people, like you said, co-hosts, where we can say, oh, this incident happened and blah blah, you'll get through it, or it's just values, just uplifting, motivation and support, with giving and all of that good stuff. We'll just have the whole branch.
Is this a solo podcast, or are you going to have a co-host?
Well, I'm solo, but I can add co-hosts in to come in,
or and just have guests with you.
Yes, okay. I can have guests with me, and that different people, different values and morals that could come in and be a part of the situation too.
Now, what I heard you say when you first came up here, you moved to Memphis to reconnect with family.
To look I only did it once.
Where did you move from?
Illinois.
Okay. So you knew you had family here. Did
No,
you could you
ma'am.
didn't? Okay.
No, I'm a genealogist. I've been in it for 10 years. I basically moved here. I was watching YouTube a lot of, what's the name of this high school? My grandmother graduated from Booker T. Washington.
Yes.
And when I worked at the funeral home, I didn't know it was down the street. And so she graduated in 1935. So I was like, hold on. Hello? I didn't know y'all was this close to the funeral home. Like, do y'all have a yearbook? So they didn't create a yearbook to 1941. So now I'm lost, but I live south. So the things that I moved down here for is to go to the city, what it used to look like back then, to kind of get a visual. I'm more of a history chaser. I started graveyard walking and trying to look for them. And so it's real. The young lady said about being serious. She want to make it funny, but to me, she sounds more serious. So you will have to give a little more jiggle, to yourself to make, because I'll be like, "Ooh, she too serious. She say I'm funny," but so it's like you gotta present yourself. I'm into fashion. Who over here in fashion? At one point, I thought I heard. So me, I'm into. I found the older me is being into fashion. So you explain to somebody else, you got too many things going on. Stop and focus on one.
Yeah.
And so the most biggest thing is, I said family. I could do fashion. I want to be a Cindy Lauper. I don't know how old you are,
I
but
know
Cindy
Cindy
Lauper.
Lauper, yes.
Okay. Do anybody else know Cindy Lauper? Hello.
Y'all
Just
don't know Cyndi
wanna, just wanna, girl. Just wanna have fun, girls. Look,
You know
I don't
what?
tell my age.
You know what? I can see your first podcast explaining to me what you just explained. Like
Family
the reason
Connect.
that you moved to here, the
Oh.
Booker T. Washington connection. You can talk through all of that for your first episode. Why haven't you started yet?
I actually, after maybe 4 years, somebody finally took me to Yazoo, Mississippi, just to look. And my grandmother would never bring me. She's deceased now. She's born 1919. I would always tell her, bring me to show me. Show me where you used to live. Show me an example. Show me your walk. I want to see. And she was like, I'm going down south, right? Baby.
She was thinking of some things.
No, she went through the time.
I know.
The slavery and all the other things. And so I kept saying no. So now she's deceased. I'm like, she ain't around to prosecute me or beat me. I was like, let me get down here. So when I moved down here, even my uncle, he died at 91, her brother. He was like, you don't get yourself back home to Illinois. You don't know what's down there. You get yourself back. But because it went through that time, it was like, I'm still down here. I'm good. Put my hood on. Something I'm not into, which put your hood on, because I tell my kids that. But I'm still trying to have confidence. I don't want to say build it, because I jumped. I leaped. I just came off on faith. And so I'm here for faith. And it's been a good faith walk. It's been a good faith walk, and I'm proud. I'm proud of my steps that the Lord has ordered. Because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't even be this far. But yes, so all those things, I just want to encourage people. I want to give I see poverty, which if I never would have moved here, a lot of things that I've seen when I first moved down here, I was crying. Spiritually, mentally. I seen couches on people's porch. I see the way the houses look, and I was like, how? How do they live like this? So I experienced that. And so more so, I don't want to say I have a blind eye now to try not to, but my heart, like you said, the Caucasian people are the ones that, Miss Humphrey, you were saying how the people you was into more like a paid something, Patreon, and more Caucasian people to me seem like yeah. And so and I'm saying, oh God, my heart just, if I can just help them. You need help in your grass cut, ma'am? If I drive, oh Lord, ma'am, you like me wipe your windows. So
So you want to help everybody.
I'm just
want to help.
I have a hard care, and so I know that there's boundaries. And if you're talking about, well, I don't like graffiti. I don't like the gangs. I don't like none of that. But it's like a double dutch effect where sometimes if you can reach out to some people, they be offensive or they so quick to do anything. And so I don't want to offend anybody by the approach. So basically,
we're gonna do a podcast.
Yeah,
about
pocket.
it.
Just kind of hello, my name is Elsa, whatever. And I need help with that.
Okay. So we're gonna have to break it down and follow the format and figure out.
Thank y'all for listening.
Are you doing solo? You're gonna have some guests. We're gonna break it all down. We'll talk more. Let's give her a round of applause. Who else would like to come up and talk about their idea? Y'all better jump in while the getting is good with this podcast life. Look, I quit my corporate job last month. Yes, don't play. Tell us your big idea.
Well, I haven't started one yet, but could you hear me?
Yeah.
Well, I haven't started one yet. I was like contemplating on it with the virtual podcast, like with the YouTube setting. But like taking the class, like, cause I'm actually in the major, mass communication and journalism, and Miss Lay, she will always like have us like writing, and she was like, and I was like never really into writing like that, and it was like you gotta cry before you walk.
Writing is important in media, very
Which is
important.
understandable, but so I've just been like thinking about it for the last past 3 years, but I never put the foot forward of making my YouTube platform on it. So when I saw last week that you was coming, I was like, oh, because I always heard you on the radio ever since I moved down here from St. Louis.
Okay.
And it was just very like interesting to get some critiques from you.
Okay. So you want to go the YouTube route, just straight YouTube.
Yes, ma'am.
So what kind of show are you interested in doing?
Since I'm like in the younger generation, and we always talking about like Beyonce and what Tory Lanez and Megan
Pop culture news.
Yeah.
So you want to do a tea? You want to do the tea? You want to provide the tea?
Yes, girl.
So where do you get your tea now?
Where I get my tea from? I would say the Shade Room. When I want to be like old woman style, I turn on and Uncle Steve and listen to them. Or Tom Joyner morning show.
So it's a lot of people, giving the pop culture news. What you're going to have to think about is how are you going to be different from everybody else that does that? What is going to set you apart?
I mean, it's not like, I feel like what's going to set me apart because growing up in St. Louis and I go back and forth to St. Louis, I also wanted to get on like Black Lives Matter like type movement virtually because not too many of us could say too much about Black Lives Matter and the police brutality and still be able to talk about pop culture,
Right. Do we have a name for the show?
Well,
we still in the planning stage right now.
Yes,
Okay. But I hear your direction more so of the pop culture news. To build an audience with that pop culture effect, you're gonna have to give us content daily, like to really build a following. Because a lot of these people that do that type of news that have the big followers, that's every day. Yeah. Like they drop in content every day, whether it's 5 minutes full of pop culture news, which you probably can go on YouTube and talk for at least 5 to 10 minutes about whatever you had heard or researched that day and still provide for your audience. But it's going to have to be more frequently than weekly.
Yeah. I do actually got friends that's actually in the YouTube world. I was lazy to get out there. Yeah. So I could get help from them and actually like video editing and learning what to do and how to gain attention.
Yeah, and I can help you too.
Yes, ma'am. Most definitely.
We're going to have to narrow some things down, Guys, the more narrow you have your niche, the better it will be for you. I promise. Because then you're going to start understanding who you're speaking to, who's supporting you. and how to move forward when you understand your audience. You coming up here with your come on, beautiful. Let's give my girl up here a round of applause. Yes. You sure?
I'm sure.
Okay.
Um, I'm still in the works as well. But I have plans on starting a mental health podcast.
Oh, I love it.
And I want to do a mental health podcast because I suffer with mental health myself. I suffer from bipolar depression. So I know how it affects me and I know how it affects my family as well. I plan to do it solo because I feel like nobody knows me better than me. And I've also went to therapy for it.
Push it up. Push it up.
You hear me?
There we go.
Okay. And I also went to therapy for it, and I've learned so many things that I've took heed into that I can also teach others. I plan to do it weekly and
You have a name for it?
shine light.
Shine light. I love it.
Yes,
I love
ma'am.
it. You know what? It sounds like you're ready to move forward
Yes, ma'am.
because you already know what you want to do. You know who you're targeting. You know your main topic. So if this is about mental health, are you going to have guests?
I would not have regular guests, but I would have guests
time to
here and
time.
there from time to time. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you tell your therapist that you're going to start a podcast?
Yes, ma'am.
What did they say?
They always tell me, take it up, but honestly, I have trouble with getting out and being sociable. Like I'm very introverted, so I feel like once I start to get to know more people and reach out and stuff, I feel like it'll take off.
Okay. So when are you getting started?
Maybe after I graduate, I need to put my focus on my studies right now.
Okay. I love it. I love it because it seems like you're very focused and already know what you want to do.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So if you need any help, I'm gonna give y'all my information. Just hit me up.
Okay, thank you
Let's
so
give her a
much.
round of applause. Yes. Wow. Anybody else? Before I wrap things up. Pretty good. No? Okay. Well, I appreciate all of you for sharing, you know, the type of podcast that you want to do. Other than the format, is much more to this podcast multimedia world. So today we only talked about format. I heard a lot of solo podcasts. I also heard. Did I hear any interview? I think any interview. So we had roundtable, multiple co-hosts as well. So that's a start. I really want you guys to look at this template on this handout and really work through those questions. You guys came up here and shared with us, your ideas already. This young lady right here already got one going. She's going on season 2. But I believe the next class that I want to do with you all is the marketing piece because that is a major piece. That is what is going to help build your audience. Another factor that's with this podcasting piece is the technical piece. Where are you guys recording? Is it at the house? Are you going to a studio? Either or is fine. You can do it on your phone, but make sure it's good quality, right? Right now, I record at the Consortium MMT, and that's downtown Memphis off of Main Street. And I was very fortunate to partner with the Consortium. I don't know if you guys are familiar with David Porter and the Consortium, but David Porter is like a Grammy award-winning musician from Memphis, right? He has all these studios throughout the city that's probably underutilized. So I met one of his board members, and this was like probably when we were at the peak of getting out of COVID, like getting back outside. He wanted me to interview his son that went through the Consortium's Emerging Stars program. He's an R&B singer named Millie Manning. You ever heard of Millie Manning from Memphis? No? You're going to have to Google him. He's good. He's a little cutie, too. So he wanted me to interview his son on the podcast. And so I was like, well, I'm doing Zoom right now, but I'm really interested in getting back in the studio. And he was like, well, I'm on the board at the Consortium. Let me talk to the board members. Maybe you could start recording at the Consortium. I was like, cool, because I was used to recording in an iHeart studio. I was doing all the production myself, doing everything myself pretty much. And so hooked up with them. They agreed. I got a whole engineer, y'all. A whole engineer. I don't have to edit anything no more. I have a whole videographer. Like I have built a team, right? So in for the things that you guys want to do, you don't have to have a videographer. You don't have to have an engineer. You all can do it yourself with different tools that are already available to you that are free. So we'll talk more about some of those type of things going forward. Gavin, I do want you to bring back the presentation because I do want to show them that last slide. Is Gavin still in there? While they're getting that up, do you all have any questions for me on format, podcast format, or anything? So you can do a podcast right now on the Anchor platform that's free, but you're gonna have to Anchor. I want you to Google Anchor. Um, there are there's software that's free right now on your computer. You guys may have to invest in a microphone, and they range from 20 to thousands of dollars. You don't have to spend a lot of money on a mic, but you're gonna need that to get at least some decent quality to your podcast because podcast is all about audio. It's all about the way it sounds. And you guys want to be on YouTube as well. You're gonna have to have a fully produced, nice looking video, right? Not all the bells and whistles, but at least have it formatted, have a plan. Just don't get up there doing anything. I mean, everything needs to be planned out. And doing a podcast, you can plan it all out before you crack the mic. And you can edit it to make it sound however you want it to sound. But you're going to have to get with the first step and listen to how you sound on the microphone. Just do that for me. Get your little microphone, plug it up to your laptop, your computer, and start talking. Write your ideas down. Talk through them. Right. So what you're gonna do after you record a few episodes, you're gonna have to upload it to a hosting site. And this particular hosting site, for example, I use Spreaker and I use SoundCloud because I started off on SoundCloud. Then I found out that Spreaker they upload to bigger platforms. To the ones that SoundCloud wasn't doing, Spreaker did it for me. So I just feel I was on SoundCloud probably for 2 years before I transitioned to Spreaker, and I had built a big following on SoundCloud. So I said, well, I'm not just gonna pull it off of SoundCloud because I still need that core audience, right? But you'll have to find a hosting site to upload your podcast. And you may want to start with SoundCloud because it's free. Now, when we get to Spreaker, that's gonna cost you, and it may be nothing but maybe $20 a month. So what the hosting site will do, it will feed to your Spotify, it will feed to your Apples, it will feed to Amazon, and you want your podcast on those bigger platforms. Hmm. Hmm. they gonna always get you in there. But then you was like, well, wait a minute, it's not saving my stuff. Wait a minute. Yeah, yeah. Buzz Sprouts. Buzz, Buzz, Buzz Sprouts. Yeah. It's a lot of hosting sites out there. A lot that are free, some that are not. But usually the ones that are not, they're gonna give you more incentives. They'll even try to tell you they want, hey, advertise with us. Hey, we'll put your podcast on this and that, but please read the fine print, y'all. We already kind of talked through some of that, right? I guess you guys can pull the presentation back up. But what I wanted to show you all, I am having a pod box event on April 30th. And what this is an event for people that are podcasters in the Mid-South. Either you're podcasting, you're interested in podcasting, but this is a way that you can network with other people that podcast in Memphis. It's going to be April 30th at the Memphis Listening Lab at Crosstown Concourse. That's a Saturday from 6 to 8. Some of the podcasters that have already signed up, Juice 901, Grind City Media, the Grind Set Podcast with Cynthia Daniels and Williams Brat. Grind City Media is a podcast that's pretty well known because they do a lot of highlights on the Grizzlies. They're a Grizzlies podcast. So these are two ladies that do it, Jessica Benson and Megan Triplett. So they're in the media. I probably had maybe about 5 more other commitments that I know are going to be there. But I would love for you all to come, network with other podcasters, people that are doing things that you're interested in. What I'm trying to do is build this community of podcasters so that we can share best practices, we can network, we can help each other out. So I had this event. I kicked it off at the end of 2018 because I said, hey, I know I'm not the only one in Memphis podcasting, right? Initially had it at Havana Mix, but of course, that's a cigar bar. A lot of people didn't want to be in a cigar bar. They're like, I don't smoke, blah, blah, blah. So it had kept getting into like different places. I had it at All World Project Management the last time with Michael Hooks and their family. But hey, Memphis Listening Lab, if you haven't been there, it is a beautiful environment. There's like really nostalgic records everywhere. Have you all been? The Memphis Listening Lab. It's like archives of records. So they have a podcast studio that is free to the public. So for some of you that haven't started podding, you might can book a session to go in there, put your voice on the mic and listen to how you sound. Like seriously, if you're interested in podcasting, just the guy, his name is Jim Cole. He runs the Memphis Listening Lab. He's very excited about this event because he's been trying to get people in his podcast studio, right? So April 30th, that's a Saturday from 6 to 8. Make sure you guys put your information on this paper. Give me your email, and I'll shoot you all the flyer because I do have a flyer here. Memphis Listening Lab at Crosstown Concourse. All right. Do I have any more questions before we come to a close? On format? All right. Well, hopefully the next session will be soon and we'll discuss social media marketing. Okay. And thank you all for coming. Be sure to follow me on social media, Ena Esco and Verbally Effective Podcast. I'm on all platforms, y'all, all of them. So check it out. I am 200 and I believe 6 episodes in. So that's a lot. But thank you all for coming. And if you all need anything, just let me know. I'm on social media. If you need my number, let me know.